Yeah, baby. We are back here Friday night, Issues and Answers, Free Speech Friday. Scott and Rev here with you. Hope you enjoy the Sade. I always do. Yes. Well, Rev, it was good to get to sort of step away from the sort of
from the incessant closing in of the walls.
Yeah, any day now the walls are closing in, Rev. Any day now. But the walls might be closing in on us and Gary, especially in regards to U.S. Steel. They just laid off 244 workers at its Gary Works steel mill when it indefinitely idles its mill operations there. Now they are saying they will relocate the workers. Relocate the workers they can. So that means that a lot of people won't be relocated probably. The majority of the 10 operations will be idled. U.S. Steel Labor and Employees Relations Senior Director James Van Buren wrote in the Workers Adjustment and Retraining Notification or WARN notice to the Indiana Department of Labor. This comes from NWI Times, right? Layoffs at the steel mill will take place on February 26th, 2023, and may continue periodically while the underlying market continues. Said U.S. Steel in a notice to the state. The layoffs will affect 125 utility technicians, 51 utility people, 65 operating technicians, and 3 senior operating technicians. U.S. Steel had already idled the number 510 line in Gary Works, its flagship steel mill, stretching along 7 miles of Lake Michigan lakefront. U.S. Steel has been cutting back on its tin making operations for years. It idled the East Chicago tin finishing plant, 101 East 129th Street indefinitely in 2019. The tin mill it acquired from LTV in 2000 once employed more than 360 people, but has not since reopened. Rev, I know, and I want to hear from you people out there, okay? Let us know, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. This is for everybody in the region. What are we without U.S. Steel?
Well, one thing I'm thinking about is I did some quick calculations. Now, last I had heard, U.S. Steel currently employs about 5,000 people.
Let me see. It said 2,500 in 2021.
It's down to 2,500 people, or is that just the tin mill?
Well, it says, let me see, the Gary Works. Yeah, Gary Works as a whole employs 2,500 people.
Wow.
As of 2021. So this is before they let the 240 people go.
So that bumps it up to just under 10% of their workforce. Yeah. Which actually lines up pretty well with what's happening at Amazon and what's happening at Meta. What's happening, I don't know what the actual percentage is over at Twitter.
They let a bunch of people go.
Yeah.
They let a bunch of their whole staff walked out at one point.
But basically, in a lot of industries, it appears they are letting go of about 10% of their workforce right now. So, if there was only 2,500 people employed there, and I know all of them didn't live, they were not all part of the 69 or 70,000 people who lived in Gary.
They're definitely not.
So then what would happen the day when they decide they no longer need an operation on the Great Lakes?
Yeah.
If that day should come.
And it's coming, it appears to be.
Yeah. What does that mean? I mean, other than, what I'd like to say, well, does it mean that they will clean up the mess they made before they go? That would be my main question. Are you going to clean up before you leave? You're not going to be like those kids that take all the toys out of my kid's toy box and then go home and then leave my kids to clean up the mess. Somebody did that to me when I was a kid, man. That was the only birthday party I had until I was 16. And you know what? I wasn't even mad because all I could think about when all them kids went home and my mother said, okay, you got to put these toys up. And I was like, well, why didn't you say that before you told these kids to go home?
Right.
Why am I stuck with it? And that's what we'll be feeling like if that were to happen. We'll be feeling like, why are we stuck with having to clean up the lakefront?
Yeah.
We didn't get anything from it.
Nope.
It didn't benefit us, other than you people out there that are retired already. I'm not yucking your yum.
Right.
I'm just saying, if you are graduating from West Side this year, odds are U.S. Steel will not play much of a role in your decision about what you're going to do next.
Right. So what does that mean for us here in the city of Gary? And what hold on, caller. Who are we? Like, I think the issue that we've had, and we've talked about this multiple times on this show, Rev, the problem that we have is that we have a problem reimagining ourselves without the mill. Like, we just can't imagine life without Gary, Indiana. It's named after Elbert H. Gary, who was
Right.
the president, if I'm not mistaken, of U.S. Steel. So I can understand on some level this whole city was built to give U.S. Steel workers someplace to live.
Right.
And this entire region was basically settled as a way to like give a factory, so that the factories would have access to Lake Michigan to be able to send out the steel and stuff. So I understand that, but we're at a point where we're starting to really fully understand the environmental and the health costs of these mills and these factories, all in a small place. We have high cancer rates. They call this region of the country Cancer Alley. Okay, our organization, United Urban Network Incorporated, works with a lot of environmentalists and a lot of environmental groups, and we've had to hear all kinds of horror stories about people in this community, in Gary and East Chicago and Hammond, these Tri-City, especially Tri-City areas, the horrific diseases, and I'll always remember hearing about the 3-year-old girl who had uterine cancer. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of cousins I have, just about all my cousins have asthma. Like, I got cousins with heart murmurs and all these other things. It's just, we're realizing the environmental, the health, and now the economic costs of having these factories be our lifeblood. So who are we without these mills at this point? Maybe this caller knows. Hello, caller.
Yes, I mean that's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
That impact on our area especially, and most of the people that they employ, they're not from here.
Yep, they're not even from here, and they don't even pay the taxes that they used to pay.
Yeah, y'all remember they had that tire taxes? You remember that? That wheel taxes?
Yeah.
They had that, and they slowly they shied away from that. The people that live here, they complain about they had to pay that kind of restitution, in order to be employed at that mill. You know what I'm talking about? Now they're taking apart piece. What are people to do? I mean, they put one in a depressed state. Look what we're up against now. You got babies raising babies. I mean, babies having babies, babies raising babies, and babies killing babies. It's sad. 12 had a 4-year-old playing with a 9mm.
Yeah.
He bullet wasn't chambered, but he was clicking it. You know what I'm saying? And he got access to it and knew how it worked. 4 years old, walking around with a dive bomb, playing with a 9mm in the hallway.
Yep.
What is one to do? We got issues on every hand, and they hitting everywhere. They're talking about depression. I don't know how would one take care of his family, pursue another entity altogether different from what he's been accustomed to, and now he's out there trying to dig a hole without a shovel. Figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
You are good with terms of phrase.
Hey man, what our grandchildren gonna do?
You mean in relation to U.S. Steel?
I mean, in relation to world economy as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it ain't only here in the U.S. still. It's all over the world. You know what I mean? And every poverty-stricken country. Especially, they're sending all that money to Ukraine. I mean, my heart goes out to the people. But what about securing our borders? What about us?
Yeah, I've been saying that from day one.
Well, I mean,
What about our 60 acres and a mule?
Yep. They got
The
money
40
for
acres.
wars, but can't feed the poor. Those are the words of the late great Tupac Shakur. And that's the way it's always been. They will always find funding for wars and the military-industrial complex, but then tell black people
Oh,
that they
wait a
can't do
minute,
anything
though.
for us.
You know, I read this book called A Pond one time, where everything else fed on something else to survive.
Right.
The big ones eat up the little ones. You know what I'm talking about?
right.
And that's where the world turns. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, wait a minute, though.
Big money eat up little money.
Here in America, I mean, the
I
poor
follow this.
aren't starving in America.
How come he not?
How come they're not?
Have you not seen the food insecurity numbers here in this country?
Well,
Have you not seen lines lined up around the block of like
Around the block, man. I mean, they be out there
Yeah.
before the
kitchens and stuff?
Yeah, I've seen
When
the
the sun come up, they
hold
come
on,
out,
hold on,
man.
hold on. I've seen the lines lined up around the block down there in Maryville. At the, what is the name
right
of the
there on
place?
8th Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also know that if you are actually poor in America, we've got a fairly robust safety net. So much so that I went through a period where I was making about $19,000 a year, and it wasn't that long
How long
ago.
ago was this?
It wasn't that long ago. It was before I moved here. It was in California. I was making $19,000
Oh,
a
it's
year.
in California.
What do you think about the president?
Yeah.
And all that
Communist
money.
California.
Wait a minute. Expensive California. But,
Yeah, California catching it, man.
you know, but I could, based on the supports that exist, and it's true, different strokes in different states. There were things you could do in California that maybe you couldn't do that definitely you couldn't do in Alabama. I think that's part of the reason why people moved to California.
That's why we moved to California.
That's why they moved there. But
Get
yeah, if
all
you're
that
in the
water, man. The water, you know, the land came out of the water, now the water's taking the land back.
So I'm just saying that it's possible to be poor in America and not be in the same boat as, say, somebody just a few 100 miles south of the border.
Oh, well, nobody's
being
saying
poor.
it's Mexico, but you know, but especially during the pandemic,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
right. You see, before the pandemic hit, some 13.7 million households, or 10.5% of all households, experienced food insecurity during 2019. Now it's gotten worse since the pandemic. Like I said, that's where we saw all the videos of people lined up around the block to get canned goods and stuff from.
What about all that money they sending to Ukraine? What about that?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk
Doing their
about that. all
borders.
the
What
time.
about our borders?
Yeah.
Well, our borders seem to be okay. I mean, is Canada
Mexico.
likely to invade anytime
Mexico.
soon?
We've been invaded from Mexico. That's that's the wrong border. Okay?
Yeah, wrong border.
Yeah, from
Of course,
Guatemala,
we could solve the Mexican border problem too if we really wanted to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and you know, I agree. You got two groups of people. You got people who want cheap labor to exploit, and you
Yeah.
got people who think that demographics is destiny.
Yeah.
And that if we import enough people of color, that they will all become Democrats. And like I said, I don't know if this last election cycle where you saw Hispanics vote in record numbers for Donald Trump and for the Republicans,
Yeah.
if that didn't disabuse you of that mentality, I don't know what will. So like I said, there's nothing, in my opinion, and this goes back to Cesar Chavez, who is Mexican himself, A. Philip Randolph, Coretta Scott King, Barbara Jordan, long list, Booker T. Washington. All these people warned about the effects of mass immigration on the working class here in America, and particularly black people. So yeah, I agree. You know, we shouldn't, as Cesar Chavez said it, we should not be importing Mexico or anybody else's power.
The next president ought to be of foreign descent. Yeah, it's possible.
You never know.
Well,
The man
many,
can, you know,
many of the
perceive-
first presidents
can't
were
be done,
foreign
man.
descent.
Yeah.
They were from Britain.
Well, their parents. I don't think it's beyond
Yeah.
Well, you know, well, I mean, Barack Obama's father was Kenyan.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had Trump's parents or grandparents, I think,
German.
Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna have some more foreign descent presidents. But thank you for your call.
Well, you know, the only reason why Obama got elected the second time because he approved gay marriages. The gays put him in. People say, well,
yeah, but that's supposedly only 10% of the population now.
Right.
I'm just saying, man. It's
there hasn't been a sudden population boost of gay men over the
every
past
day,
20, 25 years.
Well,
man. Anyway, nice show, man.
Well, thank you for your call. But going back to the U.S. Steel situation, Gary Works still remains Gary's largest employer and a key element of the city's tax base.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
I don't know. But again,
because the school district, closed down all the schools.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is.
I'm guessing. Now, see, President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on steel imports, and they planned a $750 million investment to modernize Gary Works, and this was, I think, in 2019.
Right.
But it's clear that those did not translate into new steel jobs, even after the city and the state offered the firm a $47 million tax break package. The policy provided a windfall for U.S. steel firms, but only a marginal benefit to workers in struggling steel towns. So this is once again what we have, and this is where we sort of always end up, where the corporations make money, they offshore jobs, or they import cheap labor. The workers, the towns end up dying. So like I said, we're going to have to reimagine Gary without U.S. Steel at some point. I think it might be time. I think it seriously might be time.
Time, past time, overtime.
Yeah.
I would have said, hey, when they were no longer making a majority of their employees, residents of the city, it was time to start thinking about life beyond U.S. Steel. When they started bringing in those robotics, it was time to start thinking life beyond U.S. Steel. But, we always want to wait and hope that the magic bullet will arrive that will bring everything back to the wonderful days of once upon a time.
Yep. Well, folks, we got to go to our last break.
Last time.
Yes, very last break. We only got about 13 minutes in here before Marion Williams comes in with the 2x4 and start regulating. So please give us a call now, or by 55, I'm not taking any more calls. So please stay with us here on WLTH 1370 AM. We'll get this caller when we come back from the break.